Well, hello everyone, and welcome again to Hands Across the Water. And with us, as always, is Baz and special guests Ian and Gordon from the Founders Trio. How are you? Everyone good?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
all good
great.
here. Thanks, mate. Yeah.
Just before we kick off, we're going to thank our sponsor, is Bars for Bears FC. They do a lot of charity work for all different kinds of charity around Glasgow. Also, they have a page on Facebook, 30,000 people or over 30,000. And if you go on there, no matter where you are in the world, if you ask for a bar to watch the Rangers game, there's always someone that will get you a bar to watch the Teddy Bears. But unfortunately, the team hasn't been too great at the minute. But we'll talk about that towards the second half of the show. But we want to start first of all with Ian and Gordon here, are the guys that have very kindly offered to come on the show and our guest today, and we're delighted to have you guys on. You do so much great work for Rangers and the history of our club. We'll start with you, Ian, mate, the Founders Trail. Do you want to tell everyone a bit about yourselves?
Yeah, sure. Thanks very much again for having us on. The Founders Trail is a coach tour around about Glasgow that we take not only fellow supporters on, but many others as well. We started researching the story of our founders back in 2005, and there was a few locations around Glasgow started to spring up, and we were posting them on social media sites, supporters' websites, etc. And the feedback we got was really positive. And to the extent when in 2009 we got requests from some supporters asking us to take them around about in a formulated fashion. So we thought, as a novelty, right, we'll do a walking tour. So we got the group, advertised it, got the group to meet at Fleshers Hall and set off up through the city centre and point out the locations. And then we jumped in the underground up to the West End. And we got so far and we thought it'd be an idea to have a half-time break in a pub. Disaster. That was it. That was the first Founders Trail just ended in absolute chaos. We couldn't get them back out the pub, you know. So for then on, we thought that the logical step was to take it on to a coach, and we did the first few years incredibly. We opened top one of those city sightseeing buses, which isn't a great idea in Glasgow, but we thought it was great because the amount of bookings we were getting, the coach that we could hire wasn't anywhere near enough to accommodate everyone that wanted to go on the tour. So 2015 came, the club changed hands, and we met with Graham Park, and he informed us then that his company, Parks of Hamilton, of course, had a 72-seat coach. Boom, that was it. That was it sorted. We could get everyone indoors in a luxury coach and enough seats to please everybody. But as God will tell you about, going back again to 2008, both of us were posting our findings, and we got contacted by the journalist Gary Ralston. He said he'd also been researched the founder story, and he was going to pull it all together and put it into a book. So that's what the three of us done. And since then, due to, again, demand and got, especially Gordon's continued research, there's actually been three books published over the last 16 years. Which is, and as listen, we're not telling anybody any secrets. We're saying it's the greatest sporting story of all. Those four guys who had that dream, and then the club grew through the turn of the century, and obviously on to Mr. Struth. But yeah, maybe Gordon can give me some more background on it.
Yeah, the kind of, it was kind of funny because, like myself, Ian, we both had copies of the New Era, and there was a kind of photograph in there of the kind of 1877 team, and it sparked the kind of interest to say, who are these guys? What's that white strip about? And that, and that's sort of similar starting the two years had. We kind of contacted through the internet and that. We met up, which sounds like a date, but it wasn't. It was it was about meeting the old Glaswegian pub and that, you know, and put our heads together. So we started researching, and it just flourished from there. Ian was mentioning there about the open deck bus. We used to, when we put them on, used to panic about what the weather was going to be like. And we actually, to the extent, we actually bought ponchos. So if it was going to rain, everybody in the bus got a poncho, and it was just, it was really quite poor with the rain on as well. In fact, one of the tours, we got back to the bus, we had to wipe the snow off the seats because it had been snowing. So
they're great memories, great things to look back on, But I can remember as a kid asking my dad and one of my uncles, who regularly went to Ibrox, about Moses, all coming for that book, The New Era, because in some of those history books, you got a couple of pages at most about the formation of the club. Four boys, Gairloch, Road Club, Rangers, and then they would quickly move on to Mr. Struth. And I can remember asking, what happened to these guys? Did Moses become a manager? I don't know. And nobody could tell me, bizarrely. And that was really what was the push, to get my teeth into, and find out exactly what happened to these guys. And then, of course, we ended up finding, we took all of their stories to a conclusion, and sadly found a lot of them lying in unmarked graves all around the country. Not just them, but their teammates and those who came after them, the next two wave of players, chairmen, presidents. And then back in 2014, we launched the Restoration of Rangers Graves project, and purely because of the donations we've received from our fellow supporters all around the world, we've managed to restore, I think it was 86 at the last count, of these final resting places, and that's been really rewarding, to come out of what essentially was a bus tour to begin with.
I think that's the most amazing part as well, Gordon. It's the restoration of the likes of the gravesite, but it's actually crazy to think that things like that at such a club like Glasgow Rangers, the likes of the graves and stuff were allowed to go in the derelict like that. You think that someone would have always had their hands on that, but it just didn't seem to be. But kudos to you guys for taking up the mantle and doing all that, because when I've looked at the picture on Facebook and stuff, and I've been on the tour before, and you see what the way the shape the graves were in at that before you guys done this and what they look like, it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a kind of strange thing. It's like they disappear from history. These guys, it's like I've said this a few times to you before. So I can remember that when I first went, it was the 70s, and I remember players in the 70s. I don't remember players in the 60s. So like my father and that, theirs was the 60s and the 50s. So all these guys that the light only shines so far back. You only know about your own history, sort of thing, and these guys were forgotten in time, and it's good that we can shine a wee light on them. Look at these guys. We can remember these guys that done so much for the club. It is very rewarding. It is to see that when it's done.
We're asked often, if the club offer financial help, and they have done. In fairness, they have done twice in the past. But as we put across on the tour and at our presentations, we're keen that the restoration project is funded by this generation of Rangers supporters, because it will let those who come after us have somewhere to go and pay their respects. And then it's this generation saying thank you to those who went before us, because they gave us everything that we still cherish today. And thankfully, the restoration project extended into helping some of the families bereaved by the Ibrox disaster. Disasters, I should say. There was also the accident in 1961, and just a couple of weeks ago, we restored the final resting place of a guy who died in the 1902 Ibrox disaster. That was the Scotland-England game when the stand collapsed at the Broomland Road stand. Gordon found his details. William McNair. Turns out he was an oarsman from Kinning Park, and we found his final resting place in Craigton Cemetery, and we just got his stone re-erected just a couple of weeks ago there. So it's a project. It's constantly ongoing. But as I said, I like to reiterate, we are keen that it's funded by this generation of Rangers supporters. As we go forward, it's kind of it's something that we're all going to leave behind. When we move on.
Yeah, I wonder, Baz, we'll let you in here as well, mate. It's in there with Iain Gordon. It's fascinating stuff what these guys have done, and hopefully, long after of us all being here, this continues on. You want to keep these guys are important to start at our club. They're very, very important to the whole history of our club. There wouldn't be a Rangers without them. It's important to keep them their names alive, isn't it?
Yeah,
well, absolutely, and even this generations of fans, Iain, celebrate the fact that we're so big because of what our history is, and these guys that the graves and etc. that you have looked after and restored are all part of that same history. So it is very important that this generation understands what these guys do and how important it is that Rangers history isn't from just the Souness era. It goes a lot further back, because a lot of people bar soonish these days probably wouldn't know too much, Ian and Gordon. It's a wee bit beyond their what they know. So what you do is fantastic. I know over here there's the Lymphoid Graves project, and they do a similar sort of thing to use.
Yeah, I keep an eye on that. It's fantastic what those guys do.
Yeah. So I've seen what they have done, in this country, and what you do over in Scotland. It's absolutely fantastic, and what I can't highlight enough what these guys do and how important it is to the whole Rangers family that we remember from the very start to where we are now.
Yeah. What you were saying there, Baz, is really important, because one of the biggest compliments we got paid was the Union Bears contacted us a few years ago and said, we want to come along and hire the coach. And I thought, oh, wait a minute here. We're not going through the city centre with this pyro. They said, no, we're going to come along because it's important that we educate the guys in our group. And we said, right, okay. And sure enough, they came along, hired out the coach. We went through Glasgow and had the break, and they came to us and they said, look, it's important for us that the guys who join our group understand why we're singing Four Lads Had a Dream. And this was absolutely music to our ears. And then they hired out last January, or the January before, January 24, they hired out New Evanston House at Ibrox and totally sold it out. Totally sold it. It wasn't just their own group. There was plenty of other Bears there. And we did a presentation for them. John Brown came along and spoke at it. And this is really, really encouraging for us, because what you're saying, Baz, is, it's this generation and the generations to come, and the fact that they're wanting their group to understand why they're singing those songs, it's that's really important to us. Yeah.
That's what I say, guys. And for anyone watching, especially if you haven't done the Founders Trail yet, you really, really should. Because I was saying to the guys just before we came live, it was a weekend we had booked, and it was Rangers. I think they changed the game to the Sunday, but we were already there early on the Saturday, and we didn't know what we were going to do. And then we'd seen one of the guys in the group was like, "Yeah, Founders Trail, that's a big good chance." And look, it was just lucky at the time that we actually could book on, and we had an absolute amazing time. And there's no doubt about it. You can think about Rangers, you can think you know everything. You get onto the coach with these guys, you will find out so much that you have never known before, and it does really blow your mind going around the streets and stuff when you're chatting. Someone lived here, and this is where this were, and it really does just bring it down to earth that these guys were just normal working class men. Started something that they probably obviously didn't know what size it was going to turn into, but the story itself, Ian, is fantastic, and Gordon as well.
Mm-hmm. See, it's great as well. But we always feel as though when someone's done the Founders Trail and they come off at the end, they feel better about the club, which is a kind of important thing for us, and we understand that it's such a brilliant story. These four young guys, it's Hollywood stuff, by the way, that the way our club was founded, with just young boys starting up, and now it's continued to where it is today. And it's always good to get that good feedback when people come off the bus, say much enjoyed it and stuff like that. That's a good buzz for us.
Yeah, to actually be able to take people to Fleshers Hall, and the fact that our birthplace is still a football field to this day, and you let the group stand there and tell the story behind that, it's magical. It really is. And as I said earlier on, we understand it's difficult, especially for the effort you guys make for Northern Ireland is absolutely astonishing. Me and Gordon speak about this frequently, coming across, but we understand that everything is geared towards getting across, getting to Ibrox to see the Rangers, and you're back home again. And it's difficult for people to stay an extra night to go and do the Founders Trail or the night before. And that's what inspired us back in 2014 to start our Founders Trail Roadshow, where we thought, right, okay, it's not only guys from Northern Ireland, of course, there's guys down south, guys in Inverness, Fort William.
Yeah.
We take the story out to them. So we sat and we got that sorted. And our friend, the project Alan Ferguson, he from Ballynahinch, he took us across to Newton Ards. I think it was back in 2014, 2015. We did Newton Ards in the afternoon, and then went into East Belfast at night. And since then, we've did Clough, the Memorial Hall at Londonderry, and my friend Johnny McAllister up in Coleraine, he took us in. He took us across here last year. We did the presentation. In fact, before the presentation, we actually managed to go and lay a wreath at the birthplace of Sam English, which was absolutely fantastic. Yeah. Of course, that's who Johnny's Supporters Club is named after.
Yes.
And we did the presentation that night. So We've been across a couple of times, you know, and it is one way to get across that barrier, you know, with people's travel arrangements, is us bringing the story across to you guys, which is important to us. Yeah.
It's very. Sorry,
Sorry,
Gordon, go ahead, mate.
We do feel it's important to come over there, over to Northern Ireland, even down to England, even to the north of Scotland. It's amazing the travel a lot of your supporters do, and they don't get the recognition for the club that I feel that they should get. You know, there's as far down as Corby, they're coming for there, you're coming from Northern Ireland. We done a presentation in Campbelltown, and it's like 5 hours right round sort of thing. You know, it's incredible some of the lengths the supporters go, you know, and I always feels they're a wee bit left out at times, and it disappoints us. It does disappoint us, you know.
I know it can be frustrating, you know, but everyone, it's the problem is when you fall in love with something like we do, like we all have with Rangers, you just do it anyway. It's like being with a partner who cheats on you regularly, and then on a Thursday they take you out for a nice meal or something, and then the weekend again you get let down. It's rinse and repeat, isn't it? But we still do it because we love it. And you guys do the hard work you guys are doing is because you love it. You know, it's not just us over here putting hard work in travel. And you guys are doing amazing stuff over there. But it's all because of the love of the Rangers.
Yeah, there's a wonderful link. Sorry, Gordon, I don't get part. There's a wonderful link with the Rangers going to be back, and it was actually Alan Ferguson from Ballinhanshaw mentioned there. He'd actually researched. We found out that Moses' mother, Jane Bain, was from Downpatrick. And he went and researched her side of the story. And one of her relatives, she's actually they're buried in Downpatrick Cathedral. That's actually very close to St Patrick. And so we managed to, so she came across to Scotland and also married who was Moses, Peter and Harry McNeil's father. So there was a nice link across there. And then one of Moses' brothers, I just mentioned there, Harry McNeil, he played in our first ever game against Callander. He was running the Royal Hotel in Bangor at one point. I think Gordon would expand.
It's not the Royal Hotel they're knocking down just now. It was a Royal on the same location, but it was a lot smaller. It was there, and it was 1891 to about 1896. He had the hotel, and I think the Scotland team visited him a few times when we were playing in Belfast. They would come down and visit him, sort of thing, you know. We had a lot of his memorabilia up on the walls, but when he came back to Scotland, and that was gone. But that was good. We actually went to the one of the supporters' dances there, didn't we?
The County Down. That was in the hotel in the the County Down Supporters Club, and they had dinner in Bangor one year. Yeah.
I was actually just looking back my notes to see any other times that the actual first team had went to Northern Ireland. The first time they went was in 1886. We've got that stuff there. They played Cliftonville to open up their new stand. That was there was a crowd. That was crowd of 3,000, but that was the first time. That was in the January 1886. Later on in the year, the Rangers Ancients played there, and that was like Tom Valens, Harry McNeil, a lot of the guys that founded the club played for the Ancients team, and he played in what was the park?
The
Ballinafee. He played there. Then later on that year, they come back again, the first team in 1886. So there's a kind of wee connection there, you know, and they were well received by all accounts.
It's just one thing I'd like to ask you lads as well. Like, would it not be a good thing for the likes of the club to have, like, you know, where you would get new players every season, summer, to spend a day with the likes of yourselves, you know, doing that there and letting them know here's what if you have any doubts of what Rangers Football Club means and what it is, go with Gordon Iain on a coach trip. You know, I can't see why the club don't offer that kind of a service. Just say, here, take them boys for a run round and let them know what this club means.
Yeah, that actually very nearly happened at one point. You remember David Graham, who was involved in the media and communication side of the club, not that long ago, and we were speaking with David quite a lot, and he'd actually got it more or less set up. We were going to get a minibus from parts of Hamilton, one of the luxury minibuses, of course, up to the West End and pick some of the guys up, and it ended up a bit of difficulty with our day off and fixtures, and then we were approached by someone at the club again and asked, Craig Mulholland had asked, when he was involved with the academy at the time, if we could go up and do a shortened version of our presentation for the youth players. And we thought, right, there's probably more chance of reaching these guys than there would be reaching, no offence to anyone, but reaching someone like Fredo Morelos. I mean, if you're taking Alfie down to Fletcher Saw, is it really going to matter that much? Don't get me wrong, we would have done it. Anyway, that was all going to happen, and I think we'd have changed our manager again, and it just kind of got closed off. But no, I agree with what you're saying. It's we'd be more than happy, of course, to do anything like that will give guys an insight into exactly what the club means and what it means to so many.
Yeah, no, I just thought it would be an option, but I understand what you're saying there too, because the calendar's that hard, but you'd be thinking if I'm sure once a year it's something that could be done, to get the coach filled with all the players and staff, and just go around, listen to you guys, and they'll know what the crack is by the end of of how important it is. If not, or fire them on the boat with our ones, let them know what the traveling's like, and go here. See when you're playing a European match on Wednesday and you're out of the game within 6 minutes, think of how much travel these boys have done to come and watch you.
Exactly. Sore one.
But we'll talk a wee bit about. Well, we'll start with you, Gordon, this time, about the Rangers at the minute, then, and how you think they're going. With obviously the 49ers took over and have promised a lot, and fresh ownership, and we're hoping for obviously a fresh team and maybe the lease of life we've been missing for so long. But how do you think it's been going, Gordon, so far, footballing wise?
Terrible. Absolutely terrible. There's no progression in the team. You think, all right, give them a chance. Like they're working on certain parts of the game but there's nothing. It's just pure regression rather than progression. And it's frustrating to watch. Sunday's game against St Mirren, you knew they were going to come out flying. They always do. Lackadaisical. They were run over the top as at times. There seemed to be no structure in their play. It was very turgid, playing it along the back. And it wasn't until 2 minutes to go, the team seemed as though just started doing their own thing. And it was saying, I just attack all the time. And you're like, oh, why not just start the game like that? Just play a lot of attackers and attack to see how they go, But no, it's been very poor, very, very poor.
I think Gordon's right there what he says, Ian. It seems to be this, which has happened so many times before. You always have to. Rangers need to lose. We need to lose a goal, or wait to the second half, and then they start to throw everything to it. And by that stage, sometimes it's beyond you to get the win.
I just don't understand it. I mean, it's Scottish football. I mean, it's not exactly rocket science, but it's easy enough to say we were well warned. I can remember reading. I didn't know much about Russell Martin, how he set his teams up. I just don't care that much about Southampton. But when you started getting posts going on for these guys going, you're going to regret this, and I thought, wait a minute. And then his style of play was explained. And then I thought, no, he's not going to do that in Scottish football. He knows exactly what's going on. He's been here, he's played. He knows you've got to get the front foot, you've got to be aggressive, show a lot of intent, pin teams back. And then we went to the first couple of home friendlies, and they're knocking the ball about and trying to walk out of defence. And I thought, no, don't do this to me. Don't do this. And it's just, there's been no progression since then. There's been those couple of second halves, and I'm counting Paisley there on Sunday, and he just seemed to have abandoned this whole philosophy. Went 3 at the back, couple of subs on, and you're just like, what are you doing, man? It started the game without a 9, and then we've got to put a 9 on, and it just seems to be all over the place. Unfortunately, it's I really don't know how they're going to get their sell out of this one. I don't see us all of a sudden sparking to life and starting to string 5 and 6 victories together. I really don't. How they're going to get their sell out of this is MD's guess, sadly. But you honestly thought the Americans coming in, 49ers coming in, huge investment, and I thought we're going to spend money on a manager here, a proper manager, and it never happened. Strangely.
Yeah, what's your thoughts, Baz? I think Ian and Gordon are a bit like ourselves. It's just it hasn't been good, so it hasn't. But a lot of the fans didn't want Russell Martin at the start. But like anything, once he became the manager, obviously you do what you do as a supporter, and you just say, okay, we didn't want them, but let's see how it goes and back him. But it's definitely not going too good so far.
Just before I comment on that, it was very therapeutic listening to Gordon and Ian. I was thinking about old memories in my head of how good we are. Now you're making me talk about this.
Bringing everyone back down to earth.
I'm back down. My bubble's been burst, Ian. It's gone. I'm back to normality again. Yeah, I personally think Ian, you made a good point there about when the subs and all come on. I think Russell Martin had just panicked. I think tactics were out the window at that point. It was a panic station.
Definitely.
We actually seen that later on with Clement. Clement used to do that. He used to panic and he used to just haul players off and haul players on and hope that something changed. And that's what I think happened yesterday. I honestly do. I think tactics, everything was gone, and he just said to the boys, "Try and get something here and just let them go."
I think so. There was no cohesion in that. It was just a mad rush at the end, and we seem to play better doing it that way.
Yeah.
They were pushing St Mirren back, and albeit with a bit more time, we could have really had a good score against them. But nah, there's nothing there. There's no green shoots or ain't looking good combinations and that. There's just nothing at all. Nothing at all.
I think Chris Boyd made the point that we just seem to have went back to the same shop. We're going to try and pick up players that we got Joe Worrell and Todd Cantwell and Ben Davis from, and it didn't work before. So why are you going and doing it again? You know, it's and whether there's an ignorance from Thelwell and even Russell Martin about Scottish football, I don't know. I really don't know. Because the teams that were played, Motherwell, Dundee, and St Mirren, I was saying this to Gordon earlier on today, it looks as if those teams have got more players than us on the park. They're buzzing about, they're aggressive, they know how to get it is. And the fact, I don't know if it's now just going to be pride with Martin. I mean, can Martin never go into that dressing room and say, right guys, see everything that we've worked on through the summer, it's in the bin. We're going to change this. He's not going to do that. I don't see him doing it. It's too much of a step down for that type of character and that type of manager. And that's what I said just a minute or two ago. That I really don't know how we're going to get ourselves out of this.
I think he's losing the dressing room. There's a few players in that dressing room not playing for him, not happy.
Yeah.
You know.
What do you think, Gordon, then, of the Egamani situation? Now, we don't obviously know. I think Russell Martin has interview sort of alluded to the fact that he was fine before the game. Yes, he wasn't match fit, but there was no niggly injuries or anything. And when he asked Egaman to come on after the warm-up, Egaman says that he felt a wee niggle and didn't want to come on, refused to come on the pitch. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the boy thinks he should have been playing from the start. I think that's the problem, and he's took the huff. I'm not going on something, you know, because it was obviously we need a striker and to play the start of the game, and he could have started the boy for 60 minutes or so, take him off. But I think his press conference throwing him under the bus was just a way of taking it away from the team's performance, because the team was absolutely shocking.
It was Puri, and I don't know what your thoughts is on the Egamani thing. You know, there's the camp sort of split. Some people's on the side of going, well, you know, no wonder he doesn't want to play if he doesn't get on from the start. You don't play a striker. And other people are saying, look, no matter what you think about Russell Martin, you know, at the end of the day, if Rangers are paying your wages, if the manager asks you to play, you should be playing. You know.
Yeah, I agree with that. See, going longer, going back a bit, I've always suspected that there's players at that club who have maybe spent a lot longer on the treatment table than they had to. And if Martin doing that interview after the match has to an extent blown the whistle on that, then fair enough. But at the same time, I will agree with Gordon. It's thrown somebody under the throne. He's thrown players under the bus since he got here. I think after the Middlesbrough game, he said been proved once the good players come on, you're like, what? You know. But there is a side. I think there's people in absolutely no rush to get back off the treatment table. I think that's been going on for years now. But no, I wasn't impressed. I wasn't impressed with him at all. Again, you don't want to keep going back in time, you know, and people say you can't keep going on about Walter Smith. Walter Smith would have handled that internally. You know, I mean, would have got rattled and you would have heard nothing about it. It would have been an internal problem that was dealt with internally by the club. And that would have been it. We would have moved on. The guy would probably been sold this week, and that would have been an end of story. There wouldn't have been another. But it's a guy in front of a camera who's looking seriously under pressure, and it's what Gordon said is right. He's just looking for something to get the heat off him. He never ever takes responsibility for anything that goes wrong. You know, all these stories about I've done amazing work and training all week, and you just know what you're going to get when that first whistle goes. Yeah, It's not washing. It's not washing with MD at all.
What's your thoughts on that, Baz? Then the Gaman situation, because as Ian says there and Gordon before, likes of Walter, like that wouldn't have been. He'd have kept this counsel there, and then just went up to the board afterwards. Find him in our club. That would have been the end of it.
Yeah, but Walter Smith had his own respect. The players respected Walter at all times. There was a different ethos at Ibrox then. It's not there anymore. We haven't had that at Ibrox for a very long time. We're going back to maybe the Stephen Gerrard era, I would say, where players really give the manager total respect. But that was probably the last time the manager probably had a higher grade than what the players did. Nowadays, the players seem to be higher than the manager. I don't understand that at all. I mean, the years gone by, and Gordon, Barry Ferguson would have taken a couple of painkillers and ran onto the pitch and away it went. Then days are gone. It's just gone. But I think the key point is, regardless of whether Igamani refused to come on or not, he's made the key point. I personally think Russell Martin used that as a media ploy to take the sting completely out of the performance, because he knew as soon as he mentioned Igamani refused to go on, where was the headlines? The headlines weren't about the draw. The headlines were about Igamani.
Yep.
Personally, I thought that was for a personal thing for Russell Martin as himself, it was a great tactic. It was a good thing to do. The problem is it doesn't wash for the Rangers fans. They can see right through that.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, if Igamani's going to get sold and he shouldn't have been in the squad. He should have been ready to get sold, and that's it. But to put him there, and I still think he's chucked it, because I think he honestly thought he said he'd be playing, starting the game.
I'll say one thing, Gordon. I'll say this as well, and I'll go for everyone again. Rangers for a while, we've tried all the different foreign players, and I'm not saying you can't get good foreign players, because we've had tons of them in the past. But I was looking at the likes of Lyle Cameron and then young Curtis when he came on, and I was thinking that's probably two of your only positives. Two Scottish kids, I mean, one was playing for Dundee last year, the other one's only came through our youth development, and they look like players to me, Gordon, that actually get it. They understand what it means to play for Rangers, what Scottish football is all about, and it's hard work first and then class and play after. If you don't have the hard work, like Ian said earlier, when these teams look like they have our 12 or 14 men, because we've maybe got 7 not very interested to do the dirty work, then it's hard to go and win any matches. But kudos to those two guys, definitely, but maybe getting more of a Scottish core in would be a good thing.
But those two boys are actually showing the rest of the team what it takes to play. When they announced the leadership group in the dressing room, I was like, what? You know what I mean? Suter, Tav, and what's his name? You know what I mean? I was like, there's no leaders. There's no leaders in the park. Raskin, he's trying to quash Raskin, I think, for some reason. I don't think he likes Raskin.
So I was disappointed actually when the boy Mikey Muir got on in Paisley before Finlay Curtis. And Finlay Curtis came on and played well and scored a good goal. And the guy, I think the stat came out, that was 3 goals in 6 games for the boy. I mean, why is this boy being shunted out? He's another Scot, he's another dyed-in-the-wool bear, and it's exactly the type we're needing on field. Somebody that actually cares. We mentioned again there, Walter. I mean, we can remember Walter came back the second time. And the first, me and Gordon were speaking about this earlier on. The first thing he did was buy Davy Weir and Ekiog and shut the back door. That was it. We're stopping Luton's goals. McGregor came in, and what you were saying was right, Willie. It's he brought in, Barry Ferguson was there, but he brought in the likes of Naismith over a period of time. Kenny Miller was brought in, Whittaker was brought in, Kevin Thompson was brought in, Lee McCulloch. It's all absolute no-brainers. And these guys, as Baz said, are about respect and respect for a manager. And if you go out and sign these Scottish players, I know they're not as easy to find nowadays as they maybe were back in 2007, 2008. But there's players out there. I don't know if it's some kind of snobbery. We let Ferguson go to Italy, and there's 2 or 3 others. The boy Josh Doig. Are these guys just beyond us? Do we think we can find better elsewhere?
Yeah, what's your thoughts on that, Baz, as well?
I totally agree with both Gordon and Ian. How can you argue with them types of statements? I mean, if you look back at the Lewis Ferguson situation, that was criminal. We never got that guy through the door. His dad was basically going to walk him down through the gates and hand him to us, and we didn't do that then. And I think that's actually where it all stemmed from, was Lewis Ferguson right up to now, that we haven't done that. We have done it with Lyle Cameron. and it is turning out fantastic. Lyle Cameron's been absolutely brilliant this season. Connor Barron, still a wee bit of, there's a jury still out in Connor Barron, but there's not enough. I looked at the match yesterday, and you said about Moore coming on before Curtis. It showed yesterday which player wants to be at Ibrox and who wants to have a future at Ibrox yesterday, and it was Curtis all day long.
Yep.
Yeah,
I like the lad Moore. I know he's up there trying to prove himself to go back to Spurs, but his heart, he's not looking at the Ibrox stands with a badge going, "I'm here, lads. I have a future here." Curtis is looking up, going, "Give me the chance. Let me play. I want to play for this team, and I want to be. I want my name to be like Barry Ferguson or Lee McCulloch or Davy Ware. I want to be hailed as a Scottish player in that regard." And I actually think at the minute Russell Martin's hindering him a wee bit. I'd actually like to see him play more minutes and get more game time.
Yeah, I think Martin's sending a few players. He's sending a few players in there, and his reluctance to drop Rothwell, who is obviously no fit. As Ian was saying there earlier on, that we look as though we're a man short in the middle of the park, and it shows when he's not got the fitness to get in there. Raskin's dying to play where he is, right? Where Rothwell's playing, and he's just not playing him. He's playing him in a position I don't think Raskin likes. So there's a few players that are not happy. You know what I mean? I thought Tavernier should have started. Right? He's prone to mistakes now, but Aaron's is poor. He's like a cheaper version of Tav. So he's upsetting a few players.
What do you think of that, Ian? Like the Rothwell situation, because Gordon is right. Because Rothwell, had 2 good seasons in the Championship, looked really, really good for Leeds and Southampton. But in the few games we've seen him, by the time he's ready to come off, he's absolutely busted. Like it looks as if he's just not very fit or something.
Yeah, I think there's a possibility this is a player possibly underestimating Scottish football. It's a backwater, and understand that train of thought. But at the same time, as Gordon was saying there, we always look a man short in midfield, and they seem to be running about trying to do the job of 2 men. But I think a lot of that is to do as well with giving up possession so easily. I actually get sat and explained to me at one of the games earlier on in the season what he was actually trying to do with us passed about the back, dragging teams forward, and then we burst through them at speed. But teams are sitting off us, waiting on us making a mistake, and invariably that's what we do. But if we seem to have lost the ability to pass the ball 6 yards to a teammate, it's running out for a throw to the other team, and then it's into the midfield again, and the ball's lost. Gordon was speaking, about Max Aarons there, and I'm convinced that it's under instruction. I see that boy getting the ball all the time at the right back position, but instead of bombing down the line, he cuts inside and then plays a ball along the back 4. And and we've lost that with Tav. I don't know if Tav's got the legs to do it anymore, but that full-back bombing down, the boy on the left-hand side who we brought in, he seems to be doing it okay, but Max Aarons seems to be cutting in and giving the ball along the back 4, and I don't know if it's just, I want rid of this. I suspect that might have something to do with it. A lack of confidence, just wanting rid of the ball, and then I'll just try and get on with my game. But going back to Rothwell, we just look a man short in there, and he just doesn't seem to have the legs for the intensity and the speed of Scottish football.
Can I jump in there? Because you made a great point, Ian, about the fullbacks. And the reason why I laughed is because when you said about the left back, what do you call him, Megamon? He was bombing down the left, putting crosses in and get taken off at half time.
Yeah, exactly, Baz. It's just another example.
And that was my point. Because you see, when you mentioned about Orange not doing it, Orange seems to be doing what he is told. Play a simple pass, play it left, play it back. When the young lads taking the gamble and overlapping the left winger and putting balls in, it looks like that's not what was meant to happen. That's what I'm sort of getting from that.
I think Ant-Man's suffering because of that. Because that boy, when he does get the ball, it's far too late because a man or 2 men on him. Whereas it should be moved up to him quickly and he's attacking the fullback, but he doesn't really get that. The fullback's on him right away when he gets the ball. And it's because, for me, Arms isn't playing the ball to him quick enough. Or, as you say, he's not even passing it to him. He's playing it back along the defence.
Well, the weird thing is, there seems to be, Ian, some people saying as well, though, the fact that the likes of Ant-Man and stuff, he only came off a plane and literally was thrown into the team, played absolutely fantastic. And then once he gets trained in the new Rangers way of playing, he hasn't had to kick the ball since. And what Gordon's saying there, and Baz, it's sort of ringing true, isn't it? As if there's a leash going on certain players being told, well, play it slow, play it pass it.
I was critical of the where they were going to shot for players, but I don't believe all these guys are bad players. I really don't. I believe what you're saying is right. You get 1.5, 2 good games off of Gassman. Antman, much the same, but it's just there is no support coming behind them. Gassman seemed to get a lot more of the ball, and Paisley, but again, as saying the young fullback at left back there, he was working with him really well, feeding in, going over his shoulder, getting balls in, and it just wasn't happening down the right hand side. But no, I believe these guys, can be good players for Rangers. But again, the sympathy I've got with Antman and Gassman is even down the line, round about their fullback, we were playing without a 9. It's just absolutely astonishing, the decision making, and
I don't think it helps though, guys, either when at the end of the game when we done Russell Martin does his interview, and he's saying things like, "Look, it's not the end of the world." You imagine, one of our older managers who had respected the club coming out with things like that, like Walter Smith. And I know we keep saying we don't want to keep going back, but we bring up Walter Smith at least once a show because we were desperate to go back because the times are so poor. But the likes of Walter saying that you're only two results away from a crisis, but then you've got this manager coming in and saying, look, after not getting a win in 3 games in the league, and you couldn't have picked 3 better, no offense, if you think of it, Dundee at home when they're basically starting from scratch. At the minute they're per side, you're away to Motherwell, you're away to St Mirren, and then your manager's coming out and saying, look, it's not the end of the world, don't worry about it. But that's not Rangers. You're not going to survive long.
No, that's just not going to wash with the support. We've been through this too many times. I can always remember Stephen Gerrard saying when he first got the job, one of the first people through the door at Auchenhow for a cup of tea was Walter Smith. He said, and of course I asked him for some advice, and all he said to me was, "Win, son. It's Rangers, just win." And he said, "All right, okay." That was it. Just win. And you'll get the breathing space, you'll get the time, you'll keep the punters on board. And it really is I say that's simple. It's not that simple, but you shouldn't be making it hard for yourselves. That's the frustrating thing. When you're sitting there saying, we've made this difficult for ourselves, we're playing without a 9. Then he's got to go to a back 3 at half time and throw in 2 subs. And it's really, really frustrating, guys.
Well, Gordon, it's a big week ahead for Rangers. We're away to Bruges now. That's going to be tough enough to go there. We know that, especially being 3-1 down. Another massive game in the weekend is we know the crack there when it comes to the Old Firm matches, what they mean. And what's your confidence getting into these games? Do you think maybe because they are big games, the team might just put on the performance like they've done sometimes in the past, or do you think just the style of football's not going to cut?
Do you know something? This kind of period of time is the first time I've ever thought every game I always think we've got a chance here, we're going to win the game, confident every game. I don't feel anything before yesterday's game at St Mirren. I didn't feel anything. I was like, who knows it's going to be? There's nothing to time it. And Iain says we'll probably get he said to me earlier on in the day, he says we'll probably get gubbed with Bruges, beat Celtic, never and well happy again. But it's no feeling empty the way it's going. It's just backward. It's going backwards.
What's your thoughts on? No, the confidence is shot with Gordon. He's no, and I can't blame him, to be fair. What about yourself, Iain? What do you think? Because do you write off the Bruges game and try and focus on Sunday, or is it too? But it's Champions League then. It's too much money at stake. That I would say the owners wouldn't want that to happen.
We're all desperate to have something to hang our coat on. Just something to cling on to. We can see improvement. We can maybe see him, changing his philosophy, changing his mind, trying to move things forward, But I said to a friend last Friday, a mate said to me, how do you think the next 3 games are going to go? Huge week. And I said, I think we'll draw in St Mirren because we're not enough to win. I think we'll get scudded in Bruges and we'll probably end up beating Celtic. That's just the way things happen at Rangers. And that will be enough, unfortunately, for some to allow them to get back into work on Monday morning and, have a bit of a smile. But it will just revert to type. it'll just revert to 10 because there's absolutely no indication of this guy changing things about. He just seems to be lost and in a bit of a mess. The guys he's got working behind him there, they just seem to be spending far too much time sitting looking at a monitor. And no, it just seems to be lost, unfortunately.
Yeah, what about yourself, Baz? Then on that, what's your because normally you're a bit like Ian there. You know that the Old Firm games, you're like, oh well, they'll put the performance in, they'll probably win, and then you'll play Hearts at home the next week and lose or draw. Usual nonsense, isn't it?
Well, I thought that before the first Bruges game. Actually, talking into the Bruges game, we would have risen up a wee bit better in that game. But when I seen Martin's tactics against Bruges, that has given me. I really don't believe in any system that he puts out anymore, and that includes Sunday's game. You know, even with Clement, we started in the Old Firm games make a wee bit of a fight, and we looked like something better in those games. Barry Ferguson had that against Celtic, but at the minute, I honestly, I'm very fearful for Sunday and Wednesday. I have to be honest. Because I think the negativity that Russell Martin's projecting to the fans has to be rubbing off on the players. It has to be.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very fearful. I mean, Ian, you made a great point there about looking at the monitor. I seen a caption just before that, and Robinson was out talking to his players, arm around the shoulder, telling them the instructions. The camera zoomed over to Martin, and Martin's sitting like this here looking at a screen.
Yeah.
And that's the difference in styles of managers in Scotland.
Yeah. I mean, what are they watching? You know, I mean, the game's in front of you. You know, it's still, they're looking back instance where they think they should have got a foul. You know, it's just got on with it. It just looks lost. You know, as I said, it would be great. We'd love something to hang our coat on. But and Rodgers will be exactly the same. It just seems to be managers will be sitting there licking their lips. They know how we're going to set up. They know they can harry us into a mistake. And as I say, I don't see them changing it before Wednesday or Sunday. And of course, we get an international break. And unfortunately, the board, the 49ers, may have a huge decision to make before we start back. Because I don't see them seeing that team running out to half-empty stands, which we've all sadly witnessed fairly recently, and people walking out. You know, it's a real shame because the feel-good factor was there in buckets during the summer there when they got a hold of the club, and we thought, right, we're going to now start taking steps forward, and we actually seem to have went further back, which is absolutely bizarre.
Yeah, I was saying there on the Four Lads show when I was invited on last week. It was like every season you think to yourself, right, you can't get any worse than this because, you know, you get to a certain stage, you're like, well, it's fucking awful. Do you know what I mean? So how can you go lower? And sometimes or somehow we seem to do it, and it's an achievement in itself, but unfortunately it's not a good one for us. But Gordon, as I say, it's more about the attitude as well. You know, you can talk about players being good or not playing well or what way they're being coached, but you know, just taking the heat off a wee bit of the manager. I don't want to take it off him too much because he doesn't deserve it. But there's certain players there as well just don't show the interest, you know, or wanting to even trying to buy in. You know, when you can see that when on the pitch when it looks like you know Motherwell, your Dundees, the St Mirrens of this world will always come on and be like wee buzzing bees around the team all the time and harassing them, and we always look like we just can't be bothered for the battle.
See, I've always said that if we match any team in Scotland for the endeavour and fight, we'll win every game because we should have more skillful players. But we never seem to match that desire, fight. We never seem to have that anymore, and it's mental. We've seen, as I say, the last 20 minutes in Sunday. Why not start the game like that? You know what I mean? Why not have that fight at the start and the battling? But nah, the players shouldn't need to be told that. That's the thing. They're professional football players. You see all the big top teams in the world. Their players are not just great players at fancy footwork. They can dish it out and they know when to do it. We don't have that. We don't have that fight at all.
We all know. We've all been watching Rangers for years that it undoubtedly is a heavy jersey to wear. And again, should we really been bringing in young guys on loan into that intense atmosphere. Again, and we're not going to keep going back, but again, you going back to that Walter Smith second coming round, and he brought experienced guys in, guys that could handle the pressure, because it was never going to be plain sailing. And I can remember, I think it might have been John Bennett who said a few years ago, we're not going to go down the road of looking for a quick fix. We need to be bringing in younger players, we'll breed them, and we'll sell them on for profit. And right at that moment in time, and ever since then, and every manager we've brought in, I've thought we've needed that quick fix. We've needed a quick fix. We've needed experienced players and other guys, 30, 31, got a clutch of them in, got a couple of titles under your belt, and then we can start looking at bringing younger guys in. Start getting myself back in top in Scotland and get into the Champions League, get the money banked, and have experienced players there. We were getting into the last week now of the transfer window, and he himself, Martin himself, you remember, he said it's enough a quiet dressing. It's a quiet dressing room. There is a leaders group in there, but it's a quiet dressing room, and that as well hasn't been addressed. It's just been left.
Now, Ian's 100% right there, Baz, as well, isn't he? Like, it just hasn't been addressed. So get your experienced players in. You know, I was said this in last week's show as well. You know, even if, say, Martin is talking about, look, buy into this, it'll work, it'll come good eventually. There's a bit of pain before the gain. We've heard all these things, but when your right back's a lone player, your centre back's a lone player, your left back's a lone player, so 4 out of your defence is all loans. John Suter's contract's coming up, and James Tavernier's contract's coming up, and we know he's getting on a wee bit. So what are we actually building? What future are we building for here? Because you could be starting next season with not one of those guys even available for selection.
That's right.
Yeah, well, the same can be said for Raskin too. Raskin's in this. There's 2 years left in his contract, so the Rangers have a big decision before the end of the window. Either he signs at least a 1 year's contract extension, or they sell him, because we can't be left for Raskin getting into 1 year left of his contract. That would be criminal. We've done that too many times in the past, lads. You know, with Lundstrom's and Kents and all, we've been there and done that. And Raskin's probably at a very high value at the minute, so you have to make a decision there. But my worry is about building a team with loan players is that we're not going to see that identity next season, because all them loan players are not going to be brought back in next year. They're going to be back to their feeder. They're back to their feeder clubs, and the whole point of them coming to us is that they can get another level, and then they can go back into their own and fight for a first team place in their own clubs. And unfortunately, at the minute, the way they're playing, they won't even get that opportunity next year, some of these players, because of the way they're playing. It bemuses me, the whole thing. I'm actually quite disappointed in Thilwell and Patrick Stewart as well. They have been heavily involved in the recruiting of the manager. They've been heavily involved with the player signings, and they must take accountability for this as well. It can't just always rest on the coach, because he is head coach. His job is to coach the players that are brought in. Yes, he's not doing a great job, but Thilwell and Patrick Stewart are heavily involved with bringing these players in as well. So there has to be accountability right across the board there.
Yep. No, well, that's to say, we'll sort of go back on. I want to move on to the Founders Trail again, let you give you guys the sort of end to let everyone know how you're going, because it was a good, nice start to the show, and then we'll have to talk about all the crap that we're doing at the minute. But we'll end it in the positivity again about what you guys are doing, the good work you guys are doing. But do you want to let everyone know, first of all, how to get in contact with you if anyone wants to book on and stuff?
Yeah, first of all, what we'd just like to say is the weekend before last, myself and Gordon, we went along to the King's Theatre in Glasgow for the Journey Back show with Stuart Hay, and it was an absolutely fantastic experience. In fact, we actually beat Alloa that afternoon, so it was a double celebration. We were in the King's Theatre with a few beers, with a brilliant night, and we're now going to be working with Stuart towards the Gallant Pioneers show, and we're coming over to use guys at the end of June next year. I think he's got 3 or 4 gigs across there, so we're very much looking forward to that. And we've been invited across to do one of our presentations to the Oceanic event that goes on in Adelaide in Australia in February. So we're going across there to tell that wonderful founder story to our fellow supporters across there. If you want to book tickets, it's the founderstrail.co.uk. That's our website. And you can book seats there. As I said earlier on, guys, we're now offering the museum, the Founders Trail, and then back to Ibrox, go into the museum, or you can choose the stadium tour if and when it's available. But yeah, we're very much pushing forward, but we're running into the same problems as everyone else. Where sales have dropped quite considerably, and it's all based on what Rangers are doing. You know, if people just walk up, they just literally walk away. They want to change dates or leave it till later on in the year, and etc. etc. So everybody takes a hit, but we'll always be there. We'll always be there, and we'll always keep going with the trail and telling that wonderful story.
Thanks, mate. No, as I say, that's amazing. I hope everyone listens to the likes and get yourselves on. You know, I mean, because as I say, someone who's done it before myself, you know, you don't forget it. You really enjoy it, and you always find out stuff you've never known about Rangers. No matter how much you think you do, you know, you definitely come away knowing a lot more. Gordon, the same as yourself, mate. Well, thank you very much for coming on, mate. But is there anything you want to say about the wee Founders Trail as well before we go?
No, just hope everyone comes to the site, has a look, and comes along. There's still a lot of stuff on the site to see, historical wise. But if you give us a wee follow on Twitter and stuff like that, they'll find that on the website. Appreciate that, and come along with the Founders Trail.
Baz, it's been absolutely amazing having Iain and Gordon on, hasn't it?
I love history of Rangers. You know that, William. I love hearing the stories from years ago, and I love that. You know, the four lads had a dream. We do stuff with Stevie Clifford, and his podcast is based on that theme tune. And, you know, that's what it's all about. The clubs, it's like us four sitting here and just starting an adventure, and next thing it just ends up in a worldwide phenomenon for 125, 30 years. So fantastic. What I would say to anybody that's still listening, tell us, you know, remember that the Founders Trail does the work. The reason why Rangers exist is because of all these guys going past, and they're the guys that the Founders Trail are trying to remember and trying to keep alive. So bear that in mind. And the hard times, we still got to remember of all the good times we've had in the years going past.
Yeah,
fantastic,
brilliant.
Well, thank you very much, guys, for coming on. We've really appreciate, and hope you know. Look, this is always, if you ever want to come on again, or if there's anything you're doing in the future and you just want to chat about it, all you have to do is send us a wee message. We'll always be welcome on this show, guys. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Really enjoyed it. Thanks for asking us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. All the best to you.
No problem. Thank you, everyone, for listening. As again, look, on anyone that's following us on our page and stuff, we'll put up Iain and Gordon's all the information about the four lads and give them, as I say, the Founders Trail, and we'll get everyone liking and sharing their stuff as well, because they do absolutely amazing work for our club. So I know we're talking the team at the minute. It's not great, unfortunately, and we know this, and hopefully it changes pretty soon. But remember the good work that these guys are doing, and that's very important. No matter what happens, it's the guys that have been involved in our club, the supporters. We are the ones that will always be here, no matter what, no matter who comes or goes. So it's important to support these guys, our own supporters. So thank you, and I will speak to you all again very, very soon.
Thank you.